It is my joy and privilege that we can continue our study in the book of the prophet Daniel. We will study today chapter 4, and the lesson is entitled From Pride to Humility. We remember that nothing that is in this universe serves its own purpose. That's why this book was written to prepare teachers to give in the last days the message of God in order to lead many to the path of righteousness. And by this, the means that they will use would be the revelation and the righteousness of God. And we find in the chapter 4, or in the history of King Nebuchadnezzar, how he is led from his mind's error he was born in to see the revelation of the righteousness and love of God, and how he converts by seeing the actions of God in his life. In order to understand also this special chapter, we need to understand the law of God, the fundamental law by which every single power that exists in this universe comes from God. Every created element has no power of itself. It all uses the power of God in order to serve a purpose, to give it on, to use it for the good of others. And so there is this circle of beneficence where all starts with God and ends with Him. So if we don't understand this chapter will bring great confusion in our minds. So we see the acting God in chapter 4. God gives Nebuchadnezzar again a dream. Nebuchadnezzar is confused, and he asks for the interpretation through his wise men. No one can do it, but God gives Daniel the interpretation of the dream. And we know the dream, we won't mention it specifically, the details. It's that tree that represents the king, and that tree is cut off. And he said here in verse 17, that this matter is by the decree of the watchers and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basest of men. So the most humble he puts into the greatest position when they come from him. But of course here Nebuchadnezzar is in the highest position, and God has put him into that position. But he believes it is him who brought him this great thing. So that's why he must understand that there is counsel given in heaven, that he must get a consequence for his error. So King Nebuchadnezzar is put on probation. Daniel tells him the interpretation of the dream, and he says to him in verse 27, Wherefore, O king, let any counsel be acceptable unto thee, and break off thy sins by righteousness, and thine iniquity by showing mercy to the poor, if it may be a lengthening of thy tranquility. Now, the king does not use the time of probation, because he is used not to use the time of probation. You see, when he first gets his dream, he is against its interpretation. He makes his own God. He wants an everlasting kingdom in chapter 3. Then he is moved by the faith of the three friends of Daniel, but he is not changing himself in his heart. He remains hardened. He remains in his pride. And God knows that King Nebuchadnezzar is born like this, but he does not want to lose him. And so he must go one step further in reaching out for his heart. And he must go to see something that he would never see before, because he would not. So, in verse 29, at the end of 12 months, he walked in the palace of the kingdom of Babylon. The king spake and said, Is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power, and for the honor of my majesty? So is this not me who has done these great things for my own pleasure, for my own satisfaction, out of myself? In that moment, King Nebuchadnezzar gets the sentence. God gives him the disease that he has promised to him. While the word was in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven saying, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from thee. And they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. They shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and 7 times shall pass over thee, until thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will. The same hour was the thing fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and he did grass as oxen. His body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hairs were grown like eagles' feathers, and his nails like birds' claws. So, God sets and gives Nebuchadnezzar the disease 7 years. He must live 7 years like an animal. Now, who gives the sentence? It's evidently from God. And we must understand this principle according to the law. The cause is the self-deception of Nebuchadnezzar. But the disease must come from God. As an effect, nothing can come as an effect ever from anyone else than from God. This, when we understand, then we see and everything makes sense. We don't find in the Bible that disease does not come from God. But not as a cause. He just gives the effect either in order to help someone to see his need, or he gives the consequence in order to finish his life. Because he was unable to reach his attention. So Nebuchadnezzar had many opportunities, but God did not reach his heart. So God goes to the last resort, and he let him live like an animal for 7 years. And then it says, and at the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up mine eyes unto heaven, and my understanding returned unto me. And I blessed the Most High, and I praised and honored him that liveth forever, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. And all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing, and he doth according to his will in the army of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth, and none can stay his hand or say unto him, What dost thou? At the same time my reason returned unto me, and for the glory of my kingdom mine honor and righteous brightness returned unto me, and my counselors and my lords thought unto me, and I was established in my kingdom, and excellent majesty was added unto me. So is God against majesty? Is God against luxury? Is God against high things? Of course not. He created them. He created them. But there is something that must be different. Imagine King Nebuchadnezzar would have said the last sentences he says in this chapter when he saw first the thing on his balcony when he was there in his palace. Imagine he would have said, not, is this the King Babel that I raised? But he would have said, now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, all whose works are truth and his ways judgment, and those that walk in pride he's able to base. What if he would have prayed like that? What if he would have said, He would have said just, all this majesty, yes, I build it, but not with my power, but with God's power, not for my honor, but for God's honor. His kingdom would have been fantastic. God would have not need to bring him through this humiliation process. But if things fail, God goes to this because he knows if he doesn't do it, man, however, is lost. And God has nothing to lose when he brings suffering upon man. Even though he feels every suffering, he knows the only way to get him out is to get his attention. And if man refuses even through suffering to see his need, then God can help him not. Then he remains in the way he was born. So thank God that this king, even though God had to go many ways, ultimately converts and will be a son in the kingdom of heaven and will have majesty there. We all are born like King Nebuchadnezzar. We all are born blind to ourselves, in a state of poorness, of miserableness, of blindness, imprisoned and oppressed. The state of the king is the same state as Laodicea. Laodicea is the church of God in the last time. And he says it in Revelation 3:17, "Thou sayest you are rich and increased in good, and knowest not that you are miserable, blind, naked, wretched, poor." You don't know your state, Laodicea. So you see, if there is something in the Christian world today that is obvious, then it is the pride. You don't find in the literature of the Christians that they have an issue in their life. You find in their literature only their own pride, their own realizations. They are sitting there on the balcony of their kingdom and they say, "Look what we do to the world, what great things we accomplish, and here we did that, and here we do that." There is no writing in the letters or in the publications of Christians which show their real state of miserableness, of wretchedness, of poorness, of blindness, of imprisonedness. It's not there. Because this state makes you unable to recognize yourself. That's why God must, in order to save his people, recur to things that he says, "For whom I love, I must rebuke and chasten." And disease is a chastening of God. Not for the purpose of destruction, but for the purpose of salvation. He sets it. He gives the command for it. Not as a cause, but as a result. The cause of all suffering is the lie we are born with. So God must intervene. And he intervenes through disease. God gives the suffering a purpose. It is in his interest that each being gifted with reason can recognize the consequences of the breaking of the law. King Nebuchadnezzar had so many opportunities, but he didn't see them. So he had to suffer to see that in him something is wrong. He had to realize what it means to trust himself, to think that he has done anything out from itself. We must realize that everything we do, we cannot do from ourselves. It's God's power that we use, not our own power. Disease must show our own lack of strength. And we cannot see our own lack of strength if we not lay down in fever in bed and say, "Where is my power gone?" Because we have none. We must recognize that all that we do out of God and for his purpose. But in our blindness, if we claim it's ours, who shall help? Who shall help? I want to read from Hebrew. Apostle Paul, the man of God, who knew how things work, he wrote this chapter. He wrote this epistle, and he writes chapter 12. And he says here from verse 4, "Ye have not yet resisted unto blood, striving against sin. And ye have forgotten the exhortation which speaketh unto you as unto children. My son, despise not thou the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him." People don't like rebuking, but friends, there is no way out. Peter could not understand it until he fell down. King Hezekiah could not understand it until God made him sick, then made a miracle, then brought the people from Babylon and showed him the thoughts of his heart. He was in delusion, thinking that he did it all out of his own power. He had to show Miriam by disease that she was pride. He had to show Gehazi that he was lost. So there are two consequences, either the one for salvation or the one for being lost for eternity. God has nothing to lose if he brings among us the chastening, the suffering, the difficulties, because we are from birth lost. From birth, we are not what we should be. We are in deception. We are born deaf. So the only way God can help us to bring us out, but until he can bring us out, he must show us the state in which we are born. For whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth and scourges every son whom he receiveth. If ye endure chastening, God dealt with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? But if ye be without chastenment, wherefore all are partakers, then are ye bastards and not sons. Furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh, which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? For they verily for a few days chastened us after their own pleasure, but he for our profit, that we might be partakers of his holiness. Now no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless, afterward it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised hereby. So are you thankful for the diseases you have? I am. I hate disease. I don't like it. But I thank God, because I would never see the deception of my heart if he would not show me it through disease. And I'm thankful that I'm a son. I'm not a bastard, that he chastises me from morning till night, but in a loving way. From the beginning, after my conversions, 16 and a half years ago, he just keeps me in chastising. He keeps me in education, and he shows me the error of my heart, and I really want to get rid of it. And so I am willing to go work. And yes, if I would just learn by the experience of others, then I would save a lot of suffering. But if it's not possible, God says, until I let you die, I will do everything I can to help you. So I'm thankful for this God who does not let anyone get lost, but comes into his life. I have seen this in my patients. I have seen it in me. That's why I'm thankful for all the consequences that God brings in my and in their lives. God shows through Christ and through the friends that are faithful in the book of Daniel that love can endure suffering and injustice. That they were thrown into that fiery furnace was an injustice, but they suffered it. Then Daniel was put in the lion's den. He was not angry against, he did not protest, but he took it out of the hand of God. We must understand that the life of suffering cannot endure. It makes no sense. We must understand that there is no alternative source of life, power, and fulfillment other than God. Until we don't see that, we cannot be saved. That's why I sometimes wonder when I preach this in our churches and I say that our children are born blind. They are born in a lost state. They come to me and say, how can you say that these pure children, yes, they are pure. Yes, they look nice, but they are dead because they cannot reach out to God. They must first understand that something in them must die. And they must take the new life of Christ for their life in order to live. Without a new life, no one can come and live or survive. It will all lead to death. You're born death, you die death. That's it. The only way out of this life is to come to a new life. And God created that life in Christ for every one of us. But before any one of us can see that, he must recognize his condition. Nebuchadnezzar didn't see it. People don't see it except God brings into their lives poverty, a broken heart, a captivity, a blindness, an oppression. They must see their inability. That's the chastising. That's the means that God uses. Because if we don't see it, we won't go to the only way, the life of Christ. And we will put our life together with him, his life on the cross. And the whole sinful life with the error in it must die. And then come out of there with a new life. The new life of Christ. It is rich life. God gave back to Nebuchadnezzar all his majesty. He didn't keep it there because he gave it to him, and he gave it to Lucifer. If you read how Lucifer was in heaven and endowed, how God built him and all the things he gave them, he had the greatest majesty of all creation. And he is the one that thinks they can be his. God has nothing. He can give everyone because he's a giver. But it must be not for you. You must understand that selflessness, altruism, is the law of the universe. So we will become rich, but not for us. We will become healthy, but not for us, but to preach the gospel to the world. We will become free, like the young people were free, because to be able to even be put into furnace of fire, and praise God for it. We become seeing. We may understand ourselves and know how things work, because now we have the light of the new life in our life. And we will be away from all dependency of humans, of trusting ourselves or trusting man. God has done everything in order to save us, and he still works, and he works untimely. So he wants one day to recreate this earth, to remove all effects of this terrible error that started in Lucifer, and Adam and Eve took it also. And he will create a new heaven and a new earth. In Revelation 21 it says, "And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them, and be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away." When the error is passed away, there is also a finishing of suffering. The cause is the error. That God must give it, that the error must be seen. That's why we don't fight against the effect. We don't fight against suffering, but we fight about those former things. We must fight against the cause of all evil, which is our error in our heart, thinking we are God, which lead us to a benumbing and destroying pride. And that must be put away. Must be put away. And God will end this history. And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. And in 27 it says, And there shall in no wise enter in it anything that defileth. You see, error is a defilement. Neither whosoever who works abomination or maketh a lie. You see, all those things, it all comes from this great lie of self-deception, thinking we could be gods while we could never be that. Nothing will enter into that city that defileth. No self-deceived person can enter there. That's why God works with all what he can to enlighten us, that we might see it. But who will enter there? But they which are written in the Lamb's book of life. You see, the Lamb's life is the only life that brings us into heaven. So this Lamb's life must be our life. But you cannot get this new life if you don't destroy the old. And this is the whole difficulty, that we keep on that self-deception, we keep on this life because we think when we let go, we must let go of all the pleasures and all the majesties. No. God proves to King Nebuchadnezzar that he has nothing against luxury, against pleasure, against majesty. He has only something against for whom you have it. He has only something against the error that uses the whole things for itself. This is the hate of God, because it's a lie. That's why they that overcome in Laodicea, it says, they will be like Christ, who sat down on the Father's throne, and he will give them the throne as well. Majesty? Yes. The highest one, the highest position as adopted king, child of the king's universe. But we only get that there while we are in the truth. When we understand what Nebuchadnezzar understands, and when we can exclaim together with him, now I, and we don't put Nebuchadnezzar's name, but I say, I, Horst, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, all whose works are truth, and his ways judgment. And those that walk in pride, he's able to abase. Amen.